I've got a door that's a bit of an odd width. It's 2500mm from the outside of arc to outside of arc. I wanted to get a blind today. I didn't want to have to wait around for anything online, so I thought I'd go to Bunnings and grab their 2700mm blind. Bit of a cheapie. What I figured I'd do is I'd be able to cut this one down. So today I'm going to show you how I cut it down, and so you can actually go to Bunnings, pick up your own blind, cut it down yourself. It's very easy. Now the way these blinds work is fairly simple. You just basically unroll the blind completely. You've got a little cap on the bottom rail that comes off. The bottom rail will slide off the material. Unroll the whole thing out, the material will slide off the top rail. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to just subtract 200mm from every single piece that contributes to the overall width of the blind. So instead of measuring from one end out 2500mm and then trying to work out tolerances between the brackets and bushings and rotating mechanisms and all that sort of stuff, don't even have to worry about it. It's already incorporated into this 2700mm blind. So to turn a 2700 into a 2500, we just subtract 200 from whatever's here. That's what we're gonna do. Let's go and do it. Before we get started, it's always a good idea to give the area a good clean before we start. I don't want to get any oil or any dirt and debris all over the blind. And being clean is just generally good practice anyway. First thing I'm going to do is roll out the blind completely and take the top rail and the bottom rail off the blind. Now these just slid off very easily, so there's nothing really holding them on, they just sort of slide sideways. Very easy to get off. Put these over to the side for the moment, and I'm going to use the top rail just to hold the blind open while I measure out the part that I'm going to cut off. What I'm using to mark my cuts is just a little bit of painter's tape. It saves me having to mark the blind itself with any kind of pencil or anything like that, and the tape comes off nice and easy later. Don't forget to use the sharpest Stanley knife you've got, so snap the end off yours if you're going to do this, and make sure we start with a very sharp tool. When you go to scribe it, make sure you put a foot or a knee or something like that on your straight edge. You don't want that thing sliding around when you actually make your cut. Sometimes it's going to take more than one cut, so you may actually have to go over it a few times just to actually get your knife through the material. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure back the 200mm from the top bar that the blind goes around, and because it's aluminium we can just run it through a regular old Mitre saw. If I was you, before you cut any blind, just make sure you know what material it is. Sometimes they're cardboard, sometimes plastic, sometimes aluminium. If it's steel, keep it away from your saw. If you're worried about your blade, maybe go find a cheaper blade or get a hacksaw or a cut-off wheel for your grinder, something like that. I'm not too worried about this one, it's an old blade. So I'm going to go ahead and just push through. That's a nice clean cut. Beautiful. Maybe I'll get a file under that just so it doesn't catch on anything. Just take some of those burrs off the edges. Then we'll get started on the other piece. So now we can start the reassembly. Just when you're sliding your channels back onto the blind, be careful you don't pinch it with the sharp ends of the channel. It can easily dig into the blind and give it a tear. It's definitely something you don't want to happen. And before we're ready to install, we just want to roll the blind back up, taking care to make sure that you're not sort of rolling it off center or that it's getting a little bit sideways. Make sure that it's rolling nice and straight onto that blind. Before installing any blind, I always like to just check that the top arc is nice and level. That means when I go to screw my brackets on either side, I can just line them up right at the very top. As long as it's level, it means the blind's going to go up and down nice and straight. And one last fit check just to make sure everything's nice and secure before we can give it a final test.